welcome back to another thingamajig, South Central Rhode Island, in an area called Hillsdale. We're in a mixed pine oakland. This section has a lot more pines, but there's sections of this place that have all sorts of cool stuff. Right now we're on the edge of a pasture. We got Vaccinium corymbosum, you know, the high bush blueberry. There's American beech, but these are small. You got a white birch over there. That's Betula papifera. You have Pinus strobus, the white pine. You got Pinus radiata, the pitch pine. It's pretty young. It's not the oldest forest around. I don't think any of this forest is very old. You got Paterdium, or the bracken ferns. You have Polytrichum, this little moss here growing about. And right next to it, you got the Dendrolycopodium obscurum. You know, the little lycopod. Here we have a moss in the genus Pleurozium. This is Pleurozium shruberi, or the red stem moss. This shrubbery here, or most of it, except for the tall ones, so that's all Galuscia baccata. You know, Galuscia or Galuscia, doesn't matter. It's Galuscia baccata. Or the black huckleberry, delicious berries in late summer, and little kind of reddish flowers in the spring. It is one of the more common upland shrubs. Another ericaceous plant, that being in the blueberry family. One of my favorites here. They taste really good too. We have a Quercus ilicifolia, or the bare oak, or a shrub oak. These are common in areas that is dry, and they are typically found with pitch pine, like this one here. Oaks are associated with drier locations. Same thing with the pitch pine. It could be sandy, it could be extremely rocky, but either way, they need those dry conditions to thrive. This would make a great parking lot shrub, but it's native, so people are like, I'd rather plant a burning bush and watch it die over the years. You know, this one might not be a Quercus. This one is not a Quercus ilicifolia. It might be. I know that is, but this might be a scarlet oak. Maybe it's all scarlet oak. We have Lespedeza capitata, or the round-headed bush clover. These have kind of white flowers in the summer. And it's a common pea family plant. You find it here and there in the open conditions. And right now we have Baptisia tinctoria, a little yellow-flowered pea right here. And then maybe this right here. This is either a Achillea yeah, this is an Achillea milfolium, or the common yarrow. It's kind of everywhere. It's not an invasive. It's a near native, I guess. As you see it around, it has this kind of feathery foliage. Sometimes it's evergreen, sometimes it's not. This time it's not. But yeah, Baptisia tinctoria. This log right here, we have Cladonia crystallata, or the British soldier lichen. Look at that, with the little red tips. That's why they call it the British soldier, because of its, you know, the red. It's a relatively common lichen in these drier locations, but you can also find it in swamps, other open areas, and it's usually on decaying wood. We have Euthymia graminifolia, or the grass-leaf goldenrod. These are common in open areas like this one. And then the ground cover is all likely Pennsylvania sedge, Carex pennsylvanica. By Rheotomatosa, it is in the rose family with it has pink flowers and these kind of fuzzy underside leaves. It's a nice native. It can grow in dry conditions, it can grow in wet conditions. This would make a great native shrub. By make a nice native shrub is that it would be great for the landscape, you know? But people would rather plant the stupid Japanese one than watch it invade all of our woodlands. Moss in the genus Dicranum, or Dicranum moss. You know, I'm gonna finally figure out what the hell's genus is, or what's the exact species, so I'll be right back. Dicranum scoparium, or broom moss. It's a common moss. It's a nice one. It makes his tufts, and it's different from the leucobiorums. And I'll just show you once I find another leucobiorum. So that's the Dicranum scoparium. Over here we have a Polytrichum, and I'll tell you what species this is in a second. It's Polytrichum commune. It's another common one. Forms little tufts, and you typically find it in more in dry forests. It's a nice one. Very pretty. Imagine that as a ground cover. I've seen areas where it's like kind of shitty, sandy lawn, and it's in the shade, and they blow all the leaves, so this can take over an entire lawn. It's freaking awesome. It barely needs any mowing. That Pleurozium shruberi, or the red stem moss. And this is just, 10 feet from the dicranums, or no, the polytrichums. There's dicranum over there. So that's just kind of, they form little mounds and tufts, here and there. Here's your Leucobirum. This one's probably Leucobirum glaucum, or the pincushion moss. There's another one of Leucobirum albidium, or white moss. And there's a similar looking one, but it has, like, when I show you it, you could see the difference. I'll probably find one later today, but this is the white moss. The other one has, like, kind of smaller, and it's kind of, like, green in the middle. But that's white moss right there, Leucobirum albidium. Beautiful February day. It's supposed to get up to 55 today, and you know it's one of the first days of spring. But the warm won't stay with us long, as a cold front's coming up next week, and it's supposed to snow and then be in the 30s and 40s again. But it's likely one of the last cold shots, probably second to last, until we start getting, you know, your average 50-degree spring temps and things start really growing. What do we got here? Another interesting moss. I don't really know my mosses too well. I'm getting better at them. This is definitely different from what I've been seeing. It's not the Pleuroseum. So these kind of South Central Rhode Island woods tend to be drier because we're kind of on like a sandy... not only are the soils more sandy due to glacial deposits, they can also be thin-soiled. And... also, Rhode Island is kind of like in a weird rain shadow where, because of how, I guess, New England is shaped with the coast. So basically, how would I explain that? Alright, so basically you have the shape of New England, alright? We'll make a little picture. It's going to be stupid. But pretty much, this is the coast right here. And then you have, like, you know, Rhode Island and the Cape Cod and whatnot. You can kind of see that, and then it goes up towards Maine, alright? And then, you know, you got New Jersey down there. So that's your shape. And so the Appalachians would be over here, and the thunderstorms are moving west. But because, you know, thunderstorms need a lot of uplift and hot air to rise, which rises over the land and not really over the ocean. So what happens is, the uplift stops as it gets to southern New England. So that's like Cape Cod. So Rhode Island would be right here. And so what happens is, these thunderstorms all piss out and poop out of energy by the time they get to like central Connecticut, which is right here. And so this part of Rhode Island tends to get less rainfall in the summer months, especially during droughts. Because of where it is, sometimes it gets more, sometimes it gets less, but typically it's drier. But the humidity is still there. Thus, we get these kind of pine forests and just kind of drier conditions, and that's on top of, you know, being sandy from all the glaciers and whatnot. Bassania and Polytrichum. Bassania is more associated with deep shade and moisture conditions, so it's interesting to see it underneath, you know, pitch pine. And actually, this is, yeah, see, there's a pitch pine right there. So it's interesting to see underneath the pitch pine, because it needs these, like, kind of moist, shady conditions. So I guess moist enough right here. I mean, this is a slight north slope, so it's cool to see. Bassania trilobata. In this section, we have all the different mosses we just looked at, including one I haven't talked about yet, but the most common one being Calcladium imponens. That's this one right here, the light green one. Then you got your Polytrichum. You got your Leucobirum albidium. This is another one that we haven't talked about yet, but this is an Atrichum. I'll get the exact species on that in a minute. There's your more Leucobirum. You got your Dicranums. You got your Pleuroseums right there. There's your nice Pleuroseum. There's your more not Thudium. That is your no. I'm an idiot. What is it called? Ah, yes, I just said it. Calcladium imponens, more Leucobirum, more Polytrichum, more Pleuroseum. More Pleuroseum. Oh, look. More Pleuroseum. More Polytrichum. There's Dendrolycopodiums. Lots. It's so cool. I love mosses. You know, your yard could look like this if you live here. All you gotta do is not blow. You know, let your shit grow. You got your Galacea, baccata, your black huckleberries, your blueberries, your high bush blueberries. Ah, why wouldn't you want this for your yard? I totally would if I wasn't living in a dumb fucking historic district. Ah, if only. We have Cladonia rangifera, or rangifera, or the reindeer lichen. These are pretty nice. These are common in kind of dry areas. In some glades, these form like this awesome ground cover. They're so cool. Vaccinium angustifolium or low bush blueberry right here. How they differ from the high bush blueberry like there is that they're low. They form ground covers. They're neat. And they taste pretty good too, although the berries are minuscule. White flowers, and the berries are ripe in late June, July. We have one of the most common wildflowers or spring ephemerals. This is Myanthemum canadense. These are white flowers in May. It has a single little leaf, and then you can see the red berries on there, which start in September and persist through the winter if they're not eaten by birds. We have Potentiala canadensis. This is in the rose family, and so it's a really common one, almost as common as the Myanthemum. And it's typical in dry forest, or any forest, really. And it has little yellow flowers. They're really cute and small. Distantly related to strawberries, as you can see, they kind of look similar. They're also called dwarf cinquefoils. Here's your Monotropa uniflora, your little parasitic ericaceous plant. They also called Indian pipes, white flower. I've talked about this thing 1,000 times, but I'll talk about it every time I see it, so that's just how it is. And then we got deer shat. The snack does smile is back. I won't eat it though. But yeah, Monotropa uniflora. Here we have Diphastrum digitatum, or flat-branched club moss. This is a distant relative of the Dendrolycopodium obscurum here. But it's a common one in drier forest. This being a drier forest, so you can kind of see, it's kind of mixed. You got the Diphastrums, you got your Dendrolycopodiums. They're nice. They don't really flower. They have this like stalk, little spore stalk that comes up. I like them though. We have Atrichum angustum, also known as slender starburst moss. We'll just go with angustum, Atrichum angustum. That's what it's called. Nice little moss, distantly related to Polytrichum, but different. It doesn't have a stalk. They're nice. Good old Ilex opaca, which starts to get common out this way. I saw a bigger one earlier. These are dioecious, meaning they are male and female. Red berries when they're big. This one's a small one. Betula populifolia, or the gray birch, or poplar-leaved birch. It's a nice one. Somewhat uncommon. You typically find it in more open areas. It has little seed pods, it has danglers. It's your typical birch. Here's your seeds. Spreads. It's a good food source for birds. And it's a dry tree. It likes its drier areas. And they get maybe 30 feet tall. And they have that kind of slightly gray birch. They also call it gray birch. Then we have white oaks, and these are killed by the spongy moth infestations of 2015. Dicanthelium acuminatum. It's a grass. It's also known as deer tongue grass. Let me check what the exact common name is. It's the woolly panic grass, they call it. And you can see the little wools in there, little hairs. It blooms in the summer. I've seen it bloom like from May, and I've seen it blooming in September and October. So it has little round seeds, and it's a nice one. Nice little. I'd use this in the garden. It's pretty, but small, and from a distance, it looks like a weed. I have a plant in the genus Amelanchier. It's in the rose family, otherwise known as the shadbush and serviceberries. You can find it in more open woods like this. You can also find it in swamps, and you can find it along the coast. It has white flowers in May and April, and these kind of purple berries that you can eat that are apparently delicious. I have yet to try them though. They're hard to ID the exact species because there is a lot, but you can tell it's an Amelanchier by the way it is. We have Dendrolycopodium hickey, or Hickey's tree club moss. And how you can tell it is by how rolly the stems are. On flat branched, you can't roll the stems, and I'll demonstrate that in my next little shot if I find one of these. Bionia ligostrina. These are white flowers in the early summer, and then it turns into these little woody capsules that drop very tiny seeds. It's in the blueberry family. It's a great shrub. Typically, Lyonias only occur in wetter areas. I rarely see them in anything drier, because this is a kind of a seep towards a broad lowland down here. The trail is nearby. Here we have Smilax rotundifolia, and it has berries. It's climbing up this blueberry here. And this is a really good definition of what your typical Rhode Island forest is. It is blueberry or ericaceous shrubs with Smilax rotundifolia and relatively open, I don't want to say sunny conditions, but pretty open because of the gypsy moss. So it's a distinct habitat that I really only find in Rhode Island. It's really neat. Adventures. This one's new. This is your Calcladium imponens. Right there and there. You have a Leucobirum here. And then this is something new. I'm going to find out what it is. We have the Hickey's tree club moss. We have the Galisacea. We have the white pine. Look at that. Nice diversity. This is an Atrichum here. More Leucobirum. Various Cladonias. It's a little rock pile. Mystery moss here. I don't know what it is, so it's going on my naturalist. So you'll see it eventually. One day. It could be in the next week. It could be 2025 by the time I get to it. So who knows? It's nice. I mean, it's common. And you have your Dendrolycopodium hickey. You have your Calcladium imponens, your Leucobirum, your Rubus hispidus here, with the kind of, it's like a wild raspberry. It's like a tiny blackberry. It's a dewberry. They're really good. White flowers in June. I love them. But they're not the prettiest thing in the world. I mean, they're beautiful, but they're very small. So you need like a lot of focus to admire them. But they do eventually make a nice ground cover. It just takes some time. You got your low bush blueberries, your Lyonias, your high bush blueberries. Look at that. Vaccinium corymbosum going into bud. Nice and shrubby. I love them. And then this is another blueberry. It's a red stem blueberry, which isn't no difference. It's just a younger one. I don't know. Look, I got big Lyonia here. Look how beautiful and red that is. We got more Lyonia. You got open red oaks, and then you just got some red maples coming up. That's what these are. And then these are all just dead red oaks. That's cool. Another great example of what Rhode Island is. Clethra thickets. Clethra onifolia. Alright? These are all white flowers in the summer that smell wonderful. Also known as spice bush. No, it's not the spice bush. They call it pepper bush. Yeah, sweet pepper bush. I love it. And it's bright yellow in the fall, and it smells amazing. It's such a great shrub, except sometimes it forms thickets that aren't very fun to go through. And then the thickets mixed with, as you can see over there, greenbrier, Smilax rotundifolia, so it becomes this like impenetrable thorn thicket. Which it's good because it's all native, because, you know, invasive areas make the same thing, but with invasive plants, both are more or less impenetrable and very unfun to go through. Look, we got all this young scarlet oak coming up. See how it's marcescent? Marcescent meaning it keeps its leaves. Isacrium, or a little blue stem grass, typical in meadows, and this is essentially a meadow now because of all the oak clearing. So it's a pocket meadow. Scirpus cyprinus, or woolgrass. It is a relatively common rush. A scirpus is a rush, I'm pretty sure. And then these that have just like these wind-blown seeds. They're awesome. I love them. They're just big and they're beautiful. And they have these, like, dude, it's as beautiful as some of the ornamental grasses you can buy at the store. So I'm gonna get seed from this and I'm gonna try to start it because it's such a cool plant. I have what is it? Rubus, man. There's just Rubus occidentalis there, but this is Rubus allegensis, the Allegheny blackberry. Sometimes it's hard to remember. But this forest is going to become kind of like a thorn land, a pasture land. And it already is, because look, you got more thorns there. And then there's your Rubus occidentalis, or black raspberry. I call it blue stem raspberry, obviously you see why. I love them. White flowers, blackberries, taste delicious. Both of them absolutely awesome. Stadia punctioloba, or the hay-scented fern, forming a nice ground cover with the rubus and the polytrichum and the lowbush blueberry and the white pines. Awesome plant. Forms this dense, soft mat that is bright green, through the summer, and then beautiful yellow in the fall. Such an awesome plant. Another vibe of Rhode Island is open, dead oaklands. With some pines, maybe some oaks, maybe some birches. But this is much more common in Rhode Island than in Connecticut. At least in southern Connecticut, you don't really find forests like this decimated. And the reason why they were this decimated is because they were already stressed because of drought. Because I'm sure most of New England had a bad gypsy moth epidemic all the way into like Connecticut. So, you know, gypsy moths were everywhere. But I think because the West is a little bit more wet, that the oaks were able to survive better, whereas the ones here, because it's relatively drier than Connecticut, a lot of the oaks ended up dying because they were more stressed. That's my theory, at least. Beautiful scirpus. I don't know what the species is. It might even be a juncus. I don't know. But they're cool. It looks like a rush. It might be, it might not be. But you can see it's kind of coming back with those new green shoots. I love rushes. They're really pretty. But, gotta have the right audience. So a lot of people will look at this and they're like, that's a weed. It's hard to convince them, oh, this is such a beautiful plant, look how it forms. But, you know, it's not obvious, you know. It's like, alright, it's brown. Like, they don't look at the details. Look at that detail. Isn't that nice? Or appreciate the color or the form. None of that, you know. It's gotta look gaudy and stupid. It's gotta be, like, big and bold. Like, if it's not a fucking dwarf Alberta spruce, it's gotta be like a pine tree or some other weird thing. Like, hey, it's gotta be like a rhododendron. You can't put this in there. Like, ew, it's a bunch of red sticks. You know, because people don't know anything about plants. But once you teach them, look, over here. Showed you this one before, but I love them. The good old Spirea tomatosa. This one being a very beautiful specimen. Look at that. Isn't that nice? The weird juncus. Look at this one. Because this isn't a good season for grasses at all, it's hard to differentiate between them. Like, look, we have another different one right here. I love them, but they're just complicated. Even though they're everywhere, they're so common. And they're all distinct in their own way, but to really tell, you gotta, you know, do some serious work with them. Rhode Island in the far past, which is kind of like around colonial times, and heck, most of the 1800s. It goes back to what it once was 100 years ago. Grassland. You got your Pennsylvania sedge, you got your scirpus I was showing you. See more scirpus like this. You got little blue stems over there. Hell, I won't even be surprised if there's big blue stems out here too, even though those are rather rare. Now this is just another little, there's deer tongue grass. It's a dicanthelium right there, but they're hard to tell this time of year. Thelia hurtella, or common thelia moss. It's a moss that typically grows on the north side of trees. Region of Rhode Island, because it's a grassland, there is abundance of deer, and there's also a lot of wetlands too. So it's wetlands and grasslands. People, okay. Beautiful patch of Thudium delicatum, or delicatum, or delicate fern moss. One of my favorites, and it's very common. It's absolutely gorgeous, growing with all this Pennsylvania sedge. Such an awesome habitat underneath these dead white oaks and blueberry bushes and beeches. It's absolutely beautiful. Juliana eberensis, right here on this dead white oak. It's a little scalewort, New York scalewort, and then we have a mystery moss. That'll be on iNaturalist. This type of forest, you are guided by deer trails, because where there isn't deer trails, it's dense shrubbery. And it's a lot easier to walk through grassland than dense shrubbery. So it's just patches of shrubbery and then just like the deer paths guide you around. So it's kind of like a maze land. Because it's a maze land. Just like the pine maze lands of Connecticut. And the mountain laurel maze lands. Even though the mountain laurel maze lands is just a fat thicket of mountain laurel. And it's impenetrable and undiverse. Whereas this is somewhat penetrable and somewhat diverse. And it's only diverse because it's a more diverse habitat. It isn't just a thicket of stuff. It's thicket of stuff and openings. And shade. So it's a multiple different ones, whereas the mountain laurel lands, it's oak and mountain laurel. Pick your poison, and then walk through it. Beautiful mix that you might find in your garden or backyard or brush pile or anywhere on this fallen oak tree. We have your, the cinquefoil, the potentiala right here, and then you got your rubus. And this is how a lot of freshly disturbed ground looks. And like, you think of your brush piles or just like pushed over wood or just pushed over dirt, you know. Or even in your garden bed. If you have a weedy garden in this area, you likely have these plants somewhere in there. Or it's mugwort. But I've seen this in disturbed areas, like in gardens before. Look how cool that is. It goes all the way down this hole with the A trichum. So awesome. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that cool? Come on. A trichum. I love it. And then this might be juniper haircap moss coming up here. Or it might just be another weird A trichum. And it's blue because it's in the shade. I don't know. But they're freaking awesome. And this little potential stump. So cool. Old pasture wall. Meaning this is used to house sheep or goats or cows or horses. Or it was just hayed irregularly and pasteurized. You know, it's so cool to know the history of the land. Because with the clearing, it basically sets it back. I don't want to say like 100 years, but I'd say it sets it back 100 years. Because the forests here are about 100 years old. So now you can consider it like, what a 20 to 30 year old forest. Maybe only like a 10 to 15 year old forest would look like. Maybe, maybe not. I love all the small little Dr. Seuss looking white oaks coming up in here. Stubby. They're going to be many branched, big giant trees. Because they all can get over 100 feet tall. And so this is going to be really interesting habitat. Or they're just going to grow together like these ones. Just have lower branches. Who knows? I'm going to see this forest grow as I go. It's going to be cool to come back to this exact spot and take a picture with this dual pine right here. Maybe it's a dual pine, maybe it's it's definitely a pine. But it could also be an oak. I think it's an oak. But look at all the lichens and whatnot on it. It's an old pasture, so it was that basically to provide shade for animals and whatnot. And now it's, you know, fallen. This one's probably already fallen when the rest of the oaks died.